Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the UEC. My name is Clara Kitongo. I'm one of your co-chairs, and Amara is the other co-chair here today. I'll start with a little introduction about what the UEC is. We are a group of groups focused in the New England and Mid-Atlantic regions. We meet virtually on the third Wednesday of each month, and we talk about urban forestry and other related topics. This forum is for sharing. We usually use our forum online to share upcoming events, research, jobs, topics, and anything that's related to urban forestry. And you can always find these videos that we record on YouTube. And the handle is Urban Ecology Collaborative. So if it's youtube.com/urban collaborative, Urban Ecology Collaborative. All right, so we're going to start off this meeting with some community announcements. So if anybody has anything they would like to share, any upcoming events or activities that may be good for the group, please feel free to unmute yourself and share. And while you're thinking about if you have something to share, I will share a couple of things that we know are coming up. There is a Rebuilding Resilience Post-Wildfire Recovery Strategies for Urban Forestry event that's being hosted by Planet Geo. And Amara is going to put that link in the chat for us. We're also going to be sharing with you all the Sustainable Urban Forestry Coalition Town Hall Summary. We'll be sending it as an attachment in the emails after the meeting when we send the recording out to everybody. And then we're also going to be sharing a link that shows the previous events that have been happening at the Hickson Center for Urban Sustainability. They've had a lot of really cool events talking about the use of data in urban forestry and other things like that that have been all recorded, although the sessions are now completed. So we hope you enjoy those. Just giving it one more minute in case anyone else has something to share. Yes, Becky, please go ahead.
I'll be hanging out in Boston if people want to join on Arbor Day. I will also post this in the chat, but I'm currently working to revitalize the Vibrant Cities Lab website. So if you have up-to-date resources, English, Spanish, on any kind of urban forestry topic or research or something like that, let me know. I'll post the email in the chat and you can email your resource.
Thank you, Becky. Jan, go ahead. Or was it Jan?
Hey, yeah, no, it's Jan. Thank you, Clara. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the iTree Open Academy is going to be starting on May 7th, and I'll pop that link into the chat. Davey is hosting that. And awesome news, Becky, to hear about Vibrant Cities. Thank you.
Yay, we love awesome news. And it is tree planting season, so I'm not surprised that we have a few of our friends here. We hope that you are staying healthy and hydrated as you plant those trees. And I know there's a lot of headwinds, but hopefully you're still able to get some trees in the ground this spring. So now I'll go ahead and introduce our incredible presenter today. Her name is Joanne Garton. Joanne actually joined the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program in the spring of 2017 as the project coordinator for the rural roads portion of the Burgeoning Resilient Right-of-Way Project, a state-led initiative focused on assisting municipalities with smart and forward-thinking vegetation management along their roads. Now serving all of the technical needs of communities working with trees in public ways and places, Joanne continues the robust data collection, writing, outreach, and information sharing that the UCF program delivers. Joanne holds a Bachelor's of Science in Geology and Architecture from McGill University and is a 2015 graduate of the Field Naturalist and Ecological Planning Masters of Science program at the University of Vermont. She is an active fiddler, yes, performing and teaching at dances and festivals throughout New England. When home, Joanne enjoys the quaint life of downtown Montpelier and swimming in local ponds and pools. You sound so cool, Joanne. Thank you so much for joining us to speak about the 30 years of Vermont's Urban Forestry Program. Please take it away. Thank you.
Thanks so much for welcoming me to this group. I recognize Jan, so hi Jan, and then other names and faces are new to me. So I'm excited to meet some of you today. I do live in Montpelier. You did a pretty good job of saying that name. We have a lot of French names around this part of Vermont that we really butcher with a New England accent. So yeah, Montpelier, we live next to Barre, which is Barry, and Calais is up the road. You might say Calais, but we say Callus. And so it's definitely a smorgasbord of different cultures here in this part of Vermont, but certainly with a rich French and French Canadian history. I did live in Montreal for about 10 years prior to moving here. So I'll get to hop across the border from time to time to visit communities there. It's true, I am a fiddle player too. I've made it kind of a new resolution to share that with tree people. I'm not sure why exactly, but I feel like once it's out there, then it will start to become clear to me why tree people and music people should be combining. It's something I've been studying and working on, now teach and perform since for most of my life. But yeah, kind of running two different jobs at the same time, and working with the Urban and Community Forestry Program in Vermont is we have an awesome team. We have a really great support via the Forestry Division in Vermont Forest Parks and Rec, which is where I work. I'm going to take you through kind of a picture show of a lot of activities that our state program runs. I do want to, if as much as folks are willing and able, talk as much about the future as the past, because like many of you and many people working on basically anything right now, we're looking at some really big funding cuts. And one of my big puzzles, not only this year, but in the last couple of years, is to figure out what the other steps are for urban and community forestry in our state and in our region that keep this great work going, that support amazing volunteers and staff, and build meaningful work for people in this field in our region. Bear with me a little bit while I share the screen, and took just a moment before. Here we go. And maybe, great, okay. Okay, so again, just kind of a lot of pictures to kind of take you through some of the images and people of what urban and community forestry means in Vermont, or maybe even especially in Vermont. I hear a lot of urban. We're Vermont. Do we have urban areas? And one of my great missions is to dispel that yes, absolutely, we have lots of urbanity in Vermont. But this picture here on our home screen is, not unusual, of a village green in some of our small Vermont towns. We are a state that works primarily by town governance. We don't have county governance. So we have 252 municipalities, and each municipality makes a lot of its own decisions. So you can imagine, this might be as many or as few as 1,800 people in a town, all the way up to our biggest city of Burlington, which is still only about 40,000 people. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago with a bunch of nature-based leader folks, and someone said to me, "Oh, in my sleepy town of 140,000 people," I was like, "What? I can't even imagine." Montpelier is the capital. We're in central Vermont. We are at the located in a valley at the meeting of the Winooski River and the North Branch of the Winooski River. We don't have a lot of physical room to grow because of being in this valley. We also are very prone to floods, as we've found out in the last several years. And our population here is just under 8,000 people. We have a really vibrant community scene. Lots of people come to Montpelier as their hub. But we don't have a big budget, so watch out for the potholes on the roads. It's a growing issue. We do have an awesome city forester, city arborist here, and really dedicated tree crew and tree board volunteers. So hopefully you see the next slide. I won't ask every time, but is it? Okay, great. So Vermont's urban forests, this is a map of a land cover, including tree canopy cover in the Burlington and kind of Burlington surroundings area, Colchester, Essex, Williston, Shelburne, South Burlington. This is our biggest urban zone in Vermont, located on Lake Champlain. And almost 40% of Vermonters live in a defined urban area. And there's approximately 12 million urban trees in Vermont's downtowns. This urban number, I just actually reviewed a whole bunch of grant applications for municipal planning grants, and we have a lot of small village centers that Vermonters are working hard to encourage people to move to into these distinct village centers and downtowns that go beyond this Burlington area, to really, first of all, preserve a lot of the open land and agricultural land and working forest land in Vermont, and also bring this vitality and economic vitality to some of our downtown areas. But when you look at, kind of what Vermont sells, this is what Vermont sells. This is literally a postcard. It is a picture of a postcard from Moore's Farm up the road. And this is like, what you send home from your trip to Vermont. Either this or Ben & Jerry's, whichever you did. And this is absolutely what a lot of our countryside looks like. We have a lot of gorgeous fall foliage, like not kidding people, it's amazing. And a lot of rural roads. That's kind of how I came into this program, working with a lot of forest management along the rural roadsides. But just to take you through, what does urban forestry look like in Vermont? Why do we have an urban forestry program here? This is a snapshot of my hometown, Montpelier, from up the hill. And we absolutely have a lot of developed spaces. We have vibrant downtowns that are in the same need of trees for shade, for air quality, for establishing sense of place, for all the same reasons that bigger cities need trees. Many of these areas are also in need of healthy trees. We have hotter and hotter summers, and it's becoming a pretty easy sell to folks to explain how well-placed trees reduce your heating costs and improve human health. And we do work with the Department of Health to outline projects that target areas with populations with high incidences of heat-related illness. Urban Vermont also looks like this, a bunch of trees in a line alongside the road, sidewalks, downtown living areas that maybe aren't right in the center with apartment buildings, but are certainly still urban. Back to this kind of village green setting, each one of these trees requires its own care, requires planning and planting and succession planning, convincing folks that even with the best of care, trees do die eventually, and we have to be planting something else here. And we have a lot of this. We have, strip malls and areas where there's an awful lot of parking that we all go to use. Go to the dentist or go whatever you're doing in some of these areas. So just reminding people that this is absolutely part of Vermont as well. We don't all live on a farm, although many people do. So going back and looking at, some of the trees in these public spaces, we are urban and community forestry. So looking at the community forestry aspect, in my book, a lot of urban forests are community forests. That's where people are. And those are the trees they see most of the time. But we do have a pretty, I'd be interested to hear from others if you have something similar. We have a lot of town forests, and those are forest land parcels owned by municipalities. And our program does support town forests to a certain extent. We also work with our county foresters to help municipalities figure out how to manage town forests. But I did kind of a deep dive into this about a year and a half ago, into the whole history of town forests. And they were actually, it was a program really encouraged in starting in about the 40s or 50s, 1940s or 50s, encouraging towns to buy parcels of forest land as a woodlot, basically, to allow their residents to be able to have places to get firewood and lumber to a certain extent. It was really part of the working forest. And some of these town forests are still serve that purpose exactly. Others have some recreation. Others are wildlife refuges. Others are honestly kind of hidden. Like most people in town don't even know they have a town forest. And maybe someone sugars on it. They tap maple trees. But there's really a wide range of how these towns utilize their town forest. But kind of knowing that back in the 50s and even 60s and 70s, there were 2 foresters in Vermont whose entire job was to help municipalities responsibly, sustainably manage their town forests throughout the state. So it's a really cool way to meet people in their town and find out what they're passionate about. And if you're, a naturalist into discovering some cool ecology, going to look at what's growing there, what's living there. It's pretty unique lenses into little parcels, little scattered parcels in most of our 250 odd towns. So community forests also, I argue can look like this and can look like this in Vermont. Could just be seen like some trees growing, and that's about it. And there's a road in the middle. But a lot of these spaces have a lot of cultural importance. Like this particular shot, it's a road in Hyde Park, Vermont, in Lamoille County. And the town actually gets quite a lot of tourists coming through this area in the fall to see the leaves, to take a look, to understand more about old maple trees and how they grow. And it's not a small project for municipalities to keep these trees healthy in light of keeping the roads safe, equipment getting wider for the roads, trees just getting old generally. So we do a lot of work with municipalities in their roadside forests. We're dealing with growing invasive plants and pests, but also really getting people to think about silviculture, actual forestry in their roadside forests. And then so kind of lastly, switching in the overview to, we talked about trees, who are the actual people? And this is something I'd love to workshop with some of you a little bit after the slideshow. We have 5 people in our particular urban and community forestry program, which I'll introduce you to in a sec. But the actual people who are doing a lot of the boots on the ground work, arborists, totally. We have a bunch of private arborists. We don't have an arborist association, so sometimes our program falls into that role of helping arborists connect to each other or go to trainings. We have tree wardens. This is one of many, and all the New England states have tree wardens at the town level. Our tree wardens are primarily volunteer. They don't have any particular requirements to be a tree warden. They do have some legislative duties, of which some of them are aware and some of them aren't. So that's part of my work too, to remind our tree wardens what their job actually is. Some of them are super engaged. They're real superheroes in their town. Chuck Vile here in Essex, he's just been doing this for ages and is just, everyone in town knows that they can give their tree warden a call there for some advice and some help. Sometimes the tree warden is appointed, or sometimes the tree warden is a staff member. Otherwise, that might be the road commissioner or another kind of town manager. But it generally works best when it's someone who really has that lens specifically for the legislative duties of the tree warden and cares an awful lot about trees. Our tree people, our urban and community foresters, are people who are here at the community level. We do a lot of head scratching over maps, getting people together, all seasons, a lot of volunteers, and then specifically planning commissions, conservation commissions, and then tree boards where they exist. I mentioned road crews. We do work with road crews a fair bit. They're not necessarily people who chose to work with trees, but we have a lot of trees. And we don't do a lot of planting in our forests. Trees do tend to start to grow. And so the road crews end up managing trees along the roadsides an awful lot. And so that's a bunch of road crew folks at one of our rope throwing trainings. We were showing folks how to use ropes to safely guide trees to the ground without having someone right underneath them in the fall zone after they've cut the wedge in the tree. The middle photo there is the town planner at the time in the town of Lyndonville, who worked with us on a very specific grant-funded project in 2 towns to get some trees in the ground in the right-of-way. And she, we worked hard to figure out who was going to plant the trees. And ultimately, on tree day, she drove her truck to Burlington and picked them up and drove them back again. And the 2 of us went out and planted 11 bare root trees. And this is the town planner. She's also the urban forester now by default. We work with a lot of volunteers. On the right, there is a tree nursery in Montpelier. That's pretty much that we have a good parks group, but there's an awful lot of volunteer work that goes into those initiatives. We have 9 tree cities. Actually, I think now 8. I think one of them lapsed just in filing their paperwork. They still got some great trees. So those are some of our urban and community foresters too. We've got some active tree advisory committees and tree boards. I'll say often these people are retired members of the community, not always though. So it never ceases to amaze me the effort that people can put in. It's definitely easier to get folks out and together on a nice day, but here's a group in the rural town of Corinth. They decided to do a roadside ash inventory, and they started out in March and just went at it. Everyone got their muck boots on. It's snowing here today, so it's not really spring for a while in Vermont. And people really just are passionate about being outside and will often take any reason to be together outside, to spend time outside, even if it means braving the elements. And again, just highlighting some student and community groups. These are often a lot of our tree stewards in Vermont. This is a group from Lyndonville High who got out and did a bunch of inventory around the town, planted some trees. And some of our younger students, they are good with apps. You want to give them your inventory app. They are top speed, and you just have to jog along behind them, keeping up with the species identification. So we certainly try hard to get kids interested and talking to their families about the urban and community forestry and healthy trees in Vermont. So finally, what's our program? I know there's at least one other state program person on here. So for those who haven't worked with the state urban and community forestry program, every state does have one, at least for now. There is a program at the federal level, the Urban and Community Forestry Program, that helps allocate money, among many, many other things, to our state programs. So in Vermont, we have a state program, and here we are. Myself, second from the left there, and Elise Shadler is our program manager. Both she and I work in the forestry division of Forest Parks and Recreation, along with Adam McCullough in the middle there. He goes by Ads, doing a lot of the work from the forestry division side, but working super closely with 2 of our staff at University of Vermont Extension, Gwen Kozlowski and Ginger Nickerson. So we're kind of a little strange that we have 5 staff and we're spread across 2 organizations. But we are together, the Urban and Community Forestry Program. That's 2 institutions with pretty big bureaucratic footprints. So sometimes there are some challenges to figure out how to get stuff done, but that's kind of the name of the game for the program. I will say at this point, with the exception of some salary for Elise and I, which is funded by the state of Vermont, everything else is federally funded. So we are looking at some pretty robust changes. And so one of my big asks today is, what are you all thinking about as we try to figure out navigating this world that's so different than 3 years ago when we were seeing a lot of investment in urban forestry and figuring out how to keep the ball rolling. As you all know, it takes so much time to build things, to kind of unbuild them, to break them down. It takes as much work, and then to figure out how to build them up again. It's just, we want to be very thoughtful. So at the end of the presentation, I'll kind of list what we don't have in Vermont and welcome some discussion. Every state program is guided by a council of some description. Ours has 20 members that meet twice a year in person and twice a year virtually in subcommittees. It's a real array of people, city arborists, but also historians, planners, landscape architects, foresters, downtown planners, all kinds of folks. Really enthusiastic bunch. And then programming wise, we do offer kind of three main buckets, and I'll take you through a quick slideshow of what those look like. Educational programming, financial assistance, and technical assistance. And my role is the technical assistance coordinator. It does kind of bleed into financial and educational programming too, which is totally fine. We all wear a lot of hats in the organization. So we have 3 websites. We have our Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program website, which is super active. It's definitely the most current place to see what's going on in our program, vtcommunityforestry.org. And we also run our Vermont Woods and VT Invasives. A lot of partners play into that, but those are websites that we keep up and running. We hold an Arbor Day conference coming up. May 24th, I think, is our conference this year. On the left there, we had kind of the pandemic version where we had a lot of kits going out to libraries and getting at communities outside with their seed planting activities. But usually it's this in-person event that brings some arborists, but really all kinds of tree enthusiasts, tree board members, planners, researchers, all kinds of folks. And this year it's again going to be held in Rutland. We have amazing financial support from a lot of sponsors this year. So our cost is much lower, and that has been a real goal to getting more folks to the conference, reducing the cost barrier. We have the Vermont Community Canopy Program. It's a free tree giveaway that we've been running since 2017. We're primarily in some of our denser urban areas. It's a blast. It's a feel-good day. It's a ton of work, but getting these trees that you can carry 1 or 2 of out the door. Many people who come to pick up trees have never planted a tree before, so there's some outreach on the day. I have a 14-year-old son who I brought to a community canopy event in 2020. It was often there on a weekend, so it was just kind of childcare. Like, this is what we're doing on Saturday, pack your lunch, let's go. And he's actually come to one every year since then. It's just sort of addictive of like making people happy with trees and teaching them about trees in person for a few hours every morning. So it's something we look forward to. We have 5 this year coming up. We do have the Tree City, Tree Campus, Tree Line Awards. Not something I'm super involved in, except that we try to get cities up to that benchmark, cities and towns. We have 9 cities in Vermont, and the rest are towns. We do a lot of education and outreach. Here's emerald ash borer in the flesh. They're chomping on ash trees. And in Vermont, we are at really still the beginning of the climb of emerald ash borer infestation. We were the last state, surrounded by infested state and provinces, the last one to report infestation in 2018. So we knew it was coming. We've done tons of outreach since even before 2018. This year, I think I get 4 phone calls a week about what do we do? Like, we're finally, some towns are really starting to see it, and it's hitting home now about how to manage ash trees as we face emerald ash borer infestation. We run a program called Backyards Woods. There's a robust tax incentive or tax reduction program for landowners with 27 acres or more who are keeping their forest in as forest land, actively managed forest. But for many landowners, more and more so, they own much less than 27 acres. And so our Backyard Woods program gets folks outside and thinking about how they want to manage their woods if they have less than 25 acres. And it's got both an online and in-person component. We have a big tree program. I don't know if any of you do or something similar. This program has gone on for decades. It was dormant and laid in like dusty manila folders for a few years, but we've revitalized it, made it digital, keeping track of some of the biggest species of trees throughout the state. And people just get so excited. And it's really neat to hear their stories about why they love this tree and what the history is in their family, and have people trying to like figure out how to have the biggest tree and in their species. And we've got kind of an online platform for that now to keep people interested and up to date with where some of our biggest trees are. What tree should I plant? Definitely a lot of that. And this is something I've developed a bigger interest in the last few years as we work with our state botanist. And we learn a lot about which species had native populations or are listed as rare in Vermont, and what it means to plant trees in managed landscapes that are of those species. And it sounds a little nitpicky, but we can have people use this tree selection guide to try to start to replant riparian zones or buffers around solar arrays, places where we're not looking at a managed tree exactly, but some kind of tree that could escape back into the landscape. So certainly we don't recommend any non-native and highly competitive trees, but there's also a fair number that have had native populations in Vermont that from a conservation level are offered certain protections. Tulip poplar is one of them. I just learned a couple of weeks ago, Amelanchier canadensis had a native population here in Vermont, hasn't been detected since a historic note in the 1950s. We give out Amelanchier canadensis all the time. I have one in my yard that we plant as a smaller popular urban tree. And it's one thing to have that in kind of your dense urban center and another to start planting it near forested areas. Because the species does have certain conservation protections, it makes it complicated to kind of figure out which species are a part of the native population, which species aren't. Absolutely, lots of genetic overlap, always has been, as species move up and down and blow around. But it's pretty cool to follow the science of why people think about species in certain ways and why certain trees are recommended for our urban settings. And when doing other types of work, there's a very different planting guide in place. So happy to geek out about that anytime. We have both a printed version and an online version to help folks select a tree. Almost done. We've got a program I've been working with for a few years called Women in Our Woods. There's a broad consortium of states and programs that work with the National Women Owning Woodlands Network, so supporting women landowners. In Vermont, we have kind of a subset of that, a group of us. We've got about 7 different partners work together to support women landowners and also women land managers as an underrepresented group that needs and has asked for different type of assistance and learning. It's an awesome group. It's great to have these projects happen on women-owned land, sometimes by women-only crews. We do have quite a few chainsaw safety events coming up, and can go all the way to estate planning. What do you want to have happen to your land after you die? And these events are not for women only, but they are women focused. And it's a different lens on a lot of resources that are out there and a chance to really listen to people about what they're looking for assistance and honestly mutual learning on each other's land. I mentioned some of the town forest work, town forest recreation, and also governance in general. That tends to fall into my wheelhouse as I'm able. Town forests are great to wander around, nice local treasures. Happy to show you some if you're coming to central Vermont soon. Financial assistance, changing drastically as we speak, but historically we have been able to offer anywhere from $40,000 to up to last year, almost $1 million of grants out to communities. Some are very general, anything related to tree care. Some are related specifically to tree maintenance and removal. Others related specifically to tree planting, particularly regarding ARPA-funded planting, American Rescue Plan Act, with a goal to get 5,000 trees in our urban community forests from that funding. We have had many one-off grants, landscape scale restoration grants, but this kind of very base amount for our very kind of open bread and butter grant funding has come from our federal core budget, which we are not sure if we will get next year. So that's an important consideration to figure out how we are touching a lot of these communities. It's through this financial assistance with the technical assistance that comes along. We've been able to do a few specific EAB-oriented grants. Even one is happening right now. We found a little bit of spare money through an old budget that hadn't been reconciled quite correctly, and we're able to take about $24,000 and grant it out to 4 communities to help them get some roadside ash removals happening in light of emerald ash borer really ramping up in our area. We have 2 also very kind of unique, specific programs happening right now. Again, with like these little leftover pockets of money that we really just wanted to get out the door to boots on the ground. Check Out Forestry is a specific planting program and urban forestry demo for a library. So you can go and check out forestry, at your library. We're launching that right now. We had the applications wrap up. Sorry, not a super glamorous slide. I just wanted to be able to remind you, to tell you. We also running a climate smart schoolyards of selecting a school for urban tree planting, and really like just a concerted effort for one season of education and tree planting. And we have just selected that school for a town in central Vermont. So a couple $1,000s for each one, but it's feeling great to get that money out the door to folks. We do offer a lot of technical assistance. Here's a workshop we were running for road crews, dealing with risk trees along roads. I do a lot of inventory. We have 2 of our own homegrown programs. I like this picture because here we are under the shade of a tree. And this, as you can see, is a pretty rural area. It's the town of Brownington and a place called the Old Stonehouse Museum. And, you know, you wouldn't think that such a rural area would be interested in a tree inventory, but they want to get organized about how they're going to care for these old trees on their property. We do not use, from our program level, any of the commercial inventory tools. I would like to. I think that'd be neat if Planet Geo had some way to offer us a free trial. But we have our own home-built systems that are not as robust as the professional programs, but do kind of get some of the work done with free technical assistance from our program. We have this downtown tree inventory, kind of set up these little dashboards of what's going on with some basic maintenance information. And then we also have, a bit blurry, a rapid roadside ash survey that kind of helps generate this heat map of ash trees. Ash trees are about 5 to 7% of our forest in Vermont. So there's a whole bunch. This map tells the truth. There's a lot of ash threatened by emerald ash borer along our municipal roads. And certainly EAB planning, as I mentioned, is growing and growing, even though some of you may have already kind of gone through that impact curve. With assistance of Ads McCullough, our urban forester, we've been getting more technical information out to municipalities to build up better systems for planting trees in urban areas, not just kind of the coffin planting and the 4x4 hole. And so that's been exciting to get some grant money out the door for very specific structural planting in downtown areas. And then, working in these rural towns. Ads tends to work in a lot of the urban towns. I tend to work in a lot of the rural towns, getting folks out and understanding how to care for some of their historic and significant trees along their roadside forests. We're educating tree wardens as best we can. And I just want to have a little more time on these last 2 slides. Many of us may have been at the Partners in Urban and Community Forestry Conference last November in Chicago. And we had a lot of opportunities to learn about technology and how technology is helping urban forestry programs. I am super interested in learning more about the various resources that bigger cities are using and piloting that in Vermont. We do not have very robust technology supporting our urban and community forestry programs here, and we absolutely could use it and absolutely would love it. And so for all the people who are working with soil sensors or collecting social data via all kinds of cool social science projects and using mapping tools that are helping target management, very interested in learning more about that and making sure that can happen in our cities here. And lastly, on a completely different tangent, but takes up a lot of my time these days in a really wonderful way, is I mentioned emerald ash borer a couple of dozen times. We have white, green, and black ash, also black ash, also known as brown ash, here in Vermont. And primarily along our roadsides is white or green ash. Our urban areas have green ash, but black ash is this totally amazing tree that you would not necessarily find in many urban areas. Although in wet ditches, it loves to have wet feet. It grows in seepage forests and swamp areas. And we had someone reach out a few years ago and say, hey, if you're taking down roadside ash, can you let us know if you have black ash? If you're taking that down, we'd love to check it out and utilize it for pounding into splints for basket making. And this was kind of a tree that was hiding in plain sight. We were not particularly concerned about it for risk management, but when we were kind of opening the door to the whole cultural importance of black ash, it just delved into this bigger project. We sponsored a graduate student, there's Charlotte on the left, for about 18 months to do this deeper dive into where black ash are on state lands, how municipalities are learning about black ash, and to connect us to a really interesting and intricate network of basket makers, both Abenaki basket makers and non-Abenaki basket makers. And it's since developed into these partnerships of harvesting black ash, or more so utilizing black ash that's already been brought down in part of risk management, seeing if it might be basket quality, working with Abenaki basket makers here in Vermont. One in particular, Carrie Wood, she's just an amazing educator and passionate about this work, and doing some black ash pounding workshops for the public, for our staff. You get there, you lay it out on kind of sawhorses, and you're able to debark and then pound with a small sledge, and the growth rings start to come up as splints, and you're able to peel them off and wrap them and store them. So black ash is terribly threatened by emerald ash borer. It's our canary in the coal mine here. You can have a very infested black ash next to a healthy white ash. And the time urgency of this work is very clear. We're looking at functional extirpation of this species and understanding how to treat black ash trees. We're working on seed saving and pounding black ash into splints, and ensuring sort of that these splints are there for people's grandchildren's grandchildren to learn how to weave baskets in their traditions and cultures is been a big, really meaningful part of this technical assistance work in the last few years. There are many, many great partners and super knowledgeable people all around this region, and it's been a pleasure to work with folks in New Hampshire, Maine, New York, just, learning about the role of this tree. It's also very fun and wet and buggy to go out into a black ash swamp and learn more about black ash in person. So that was the longest run through of a lot of what we do. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and say that what we don't have and what we're looking at having a change. I mentioned that the vast majority of our programming is federally funded. Like many of you, we don't know what the future is for our funding, except it is not known, so it's very hard to plan. We do not have a lot of financial buy-in from the state, so that's always been on our radar to try and figure out how to do that. But what we don't have beyond the city of Burlington is we don't have a nonprofit, an urban community forestry nonprofit that can hold a lot of the work that a government agency can't hold. Branch Out Burlington is a tree nursery in Burlington, Vermont. They're amazing. They run volunteer days. They do supply some trees to the city of Burlington, but they also give away trees and then do a tree sale. They're pretty awesome, but that's their niche work. We have 4 city arborists. Out of 252 towns, we have 4 city arborists in 4 cities. The rest of the tree work is really run by contractors, people who do their best, and an awful lot of volunteers. And when I learn about, I think I saw Boston Tree Alliance, and in Massachusetts especially, you have all these, each city kind of has its own tree nonprofit, and I am eternally amazed and want that for Vermont. I don't think we have enough population or budget to do that in a town by town basis. But certainly, you know, when it comes to funding requests and the type of work that a nonprofit could do at a statewide level, like now I don't know if you use the expression to build the soil, you know, that you build the soil of what can support that, when particularly now when we're looking at a funding shortage. It's a perfect opportunity, although sad opportunity, to diversify how we're going to be financially and logistically supporting urban and community forestry in so many of our municipalities. So open to all kinds of thoughts or even reflections. I see the chat coming in, so I'll open that up. Is the SOUL training still a thing? So SOUL was Stewards of the Urban Landscape, and it is not still a thing exactly. It was something that was run before I was in the program, actually, and folks would get together in cohorts and meet for, maybe you know Philip or Phil, it was 6 weeks or 12 weeks, I don't know what it was. And there was a lot of learning, and then a community project. And many of the people you saw in that slideshow are SOUL graduates. They ended up kind of taking their work to the community level. I do co-teach a program called Environmental Leadership Training that is open to all kinds of local environmental leaders. It focuses a bit more on planning, but also leadership, like the types of leadership needed to support this kind of work. But SOUL itself sunset before the pandemic, and as many of you might agree, it's harder and harder to run in-person events since the pandemic. But it had, I think, a huge local impact. Yeah, thanks for that question. Any other questions or thoughts on anything, really?
I had a question, and thank you for this incredible presentation. There's a lot of work that the group is doing, and it would be interesting to see how much it can expand when a nonprofit can spin out of, to get that kind of deeper support out of the government piece. But I'm curious about the work with the youth and the app part. Is that a program that's specific around engaging youth in the forestry management, and how does that actually work, where you're getting them to do the inventory for you on the apps? Is that just kind of incorporated in a tree planting program, or is it a specific niche thing to develop these youth? And also, are they paid to do that work, or is it mostly like volunteer?
So anytime I've had young kids, let's say middle school and younger, out, it's very one-off. It's like some teacher is just sort of interested. The data we get, may be questionable a little bit. Great photos though, and lots of imagination. It's usually in concert with like a science teacher, what they want to have done at that time. So I wouldn't say it's like particularly moving towards a concerted effort for the municipality. However, high school and older, sometimes we get, again, teachers who are wanting a project for their students. I've come and done lectures about what urban forestry is, and they've gone out as part of their coursework and done some of the inventory. We don't have like a youth watering program, or something where there's ways for young people to have meaningful employment, particularly through their summer break. We do have something called the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps that runs like really more robust, often forestry projects. We did try to use a woman-centered Vermont Youth Conservation Corps crew to do some planting on woman-owned lands, part of that whole Woman in Our Woods project. It was tough. It didn't pan out as easily as we had hoped. But yeah, I'd say most of the volunteer work is adult work. We do also work with TRY, Teens Reaching Youth, which is a program in schools where the teens learn certain ways of speaking about forestry, and then teach usually elementary school kids, and that's done through the school day too. TRY is the acronym. And the last one I'll mention that I've done a few times, we've gotten involved with, we have a group called organization called Vermont Works for Women, and it gets women and girls exposed to all kinds of work, particularly within the trades, they have a big trade day, Women Can Do conference every fall. And we've been called to do some demonstrations there. We've had people looking at tree ID, learning about rope throwing. Last year we had, with ADS's help, middle and high school girls climbing trees, putting the saddle on and climbing. And they also run some career days. So it's opportunistic. When you get those superstar teachers who want it to happen in their school, I try to bend over backwards to make sure it happens. But it's thanks to those superstar teachers.
Yes, go teachers. There are three questions in the chat. I can read Marcus's question if that's helpful. So Marcus says, to reduce utility conflicts, are electric wires typically placed underground in town centers, allowing the planting of canopy trees on both sides of streets? And have any urban areas banned gas hookups on new construction, as New York City and state have done?
Great question. So to your first about our power lines buried, generally no. Boy, I wish they were. They sure are a problem around here. And after an ice or windstorm, it's not a great day in Vermont to be speaking for the trees, because usually people are without power for a long time. Some developments are doing that. Not enough are. I think it would be great to have more of that, but it's not. It's a money question again. Like, we're dealing with that in Montpelier. It would be amazing to bury our lines in the downtown, and we can barely pave our streets right now. So digging them up, that's the long-term goal, but I'm not sure when it will happen. Regarding gas hookups, I have not heard of that. I have not heard of that at all as a ban, and I will ask around. We have a lot of wood heat in Vermont for sure, but not always in our more urban centers, and wood pellets as well. But I have not heard about a gas hookup ban. I will ask. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. Philip asked another question. The power of urban forest sustainability is local, but we do hope that state programs are planning to double down if federal funds are lost. I agree with you, Philip. Are there any legislative initiatives to continue this work in Vermont?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say no, not right now. Some of you may know our Forest Parks and Rec Commissioner right now, Danielle Fitzko. She used to be the program manager of our Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program. She's absolutely a great voice at the State House for our work. The problem right now that we're just detangling is that any organization that would kind of partner with us is facing also great cuts, particularly the Department of Health, and that's a very logical partner in terms of human health and promoting equitable health in all kinds of areas. And that's so I don't know what the next steps are. I really don't. We don't, we're not a big state. We're not a big powerhouse at the national level, apart from we do have some pretty awesome key players. Not many, 3 of them, but they're there. Yeah. I don't know what it's going to look like. Our last big legislative push in the State House was back in 2019, 2020, which was updates to the tree warden statutes, which, to be honest, didn't roll out exactly as our program would have liked. It was, there was a lot of partnership between different municipality organizations representing municipalities. But I need to know what those are, know what the next legislative initiatives are. Thank you.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe continuing to work with the Sustainable Urban Forestry Coalition will be a helpful move for people while doing this work, just to stay tapped into their network as they try to build some tools. But I think we're all in that same boat, honestly.
A big partner that I've been thinking a lot about in the last year is agriculture. Like, when you're planting and growing trees and thinking about access to trees as a human right and as a benefit for your health, everyone's health, not to mention all the community benefits and all the things you can learn from being around trees, and the fact that, yeah, we have great mountainside trails and farms, but not everyone lives there. In fact, many people never go there. They live in town and they work in town. Thinking about a tie to food is what I'm hoping can be kind of a glimmer of partnership in this, that getting trees grown and into the right places so that they thrive is very similar to growing food, to growing crops, to gardening. It's kind of a different form of management. So we have several food-based nonprofits. One is called the Center for an Agricultural Economy, based out of Hardwick. If you ever get to go to Hardwick and get to know the community there, it's cool. People joke, they say this themselves. It used to be known as the armpit of Vermont, and it really, like, they just do the coolest stuff there. Tiny little town. Hardwick is a playground. Yeah, everyone loves Hardwick. It's the tiniest place. You'll bomb through it in just a second. But they have this Center for Agricultural Economy, amazing nonprofit that really mixes both access to food, help for small farmers, and community events, like, all together. And that's sort of a hat I'd like to I'd like to hang my, whatever the analogy is. I'd love to partner with them a little more.
All right, we are at 10:59. Oh, all good things have to wrap up. There were some good comments in the chat. Becky was talking about potentially thinking about having a fiscal sponsor, such as a Vermont Foundation, that can help you fundraise and hold money from foundations and corporations and donors. And people love Vermont. Cimbria has something in the chat. She said, if you knew Dee R's house, you can say yes or no.
I don't know that person, and
Okay.
someone mentioned
Dee
Vermont.
R's house. The Ecology of Care is her book. It's amazing. Yeah, you definitely, and she gets up every morning and goes swimming in the river outside her house all year long. As long as she can get in the water, she's in the water. She's a soul for you. I think you'd love her.
So it's a book recommendation. Thank you.
All right, because we value your time. I just wanted to all of us thank Joanne. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing. We'll send out the follow-up recording. If there's any more discussion, we can continue it. We hope to see you next month. Thank you again.
Yes. Thanks all. Please reach out with any ideas or partnerships. We are the door is open. So,
Thank you.
thank you all. Thanks for your time organizing us too.
Thank you.